All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jake. If you are not familiar with me, talk about hypnosis, talk about metaphysical things, talk about spirituality. And today we've got a fun show for you guys around the higher self and who it is, what it is, how we connect, what is the purpose of connecting, some of my understandings from personal experience, as well as from clients and all of that. So yeah, hello to you, Corbin, as well. Thank you, as always, for being in the chat. And how did you know? I always call in my higher self right before doing shows, doing sessions. I always ask for their assistance, their hand in this sort of work. And so they are certainly here, and they are excited to be co-hosting this show with me and talking about themselves and all of that. So welcome, everyone. Let's see. So today, like I said, I want to talk about the higher self, and I want to do it in a really grounded and kind of demystifying way, because I think that there's certainly lots of very out there ways to talk about this sort of a thing. And I want to make sure to kind of bring it back down and make it practical, make it helpful for y'all. So definitely stay tuned, because at the end I'll have some practical tips and tricks for connecting to your own higher self. And I think it will be a useful information for y'all. I am going to share a little bit of session clips too, talking about the higher self, talking about how to connect. And then if we have time and if I'm still feeling it at the end, I might pull some cards and see what the message is from the higher self. So lots in this show today. It's going to be fun. And I hope you guys are excited as well. Definitely let me know in the comments below, in the chat, how do you connect with your higher self, or how have you had experiences with that aspect of you? Would definitely be interested to know. And of course, if anything resonates with you throughout the show, let us know too. All right, without further ado, I think I will toss up my website. And I want to show you guys around a little bit, because we got some jazzy new colors. We got some new information as well. So definitely go check out my website if you want more information on my practice. Still filling some of it in as we go along here in the month of July, but got a lot up. Thank you, Corbin, for all your hard work on my website. But there's a lot of information there about my services, what you can expect from a session, more about me. I'll show you my bookings page as well, because we got a lot going on there that is new and fresh as well. Of course, if you go on over to the bookings page, we've got my one-on-one sessions, and they are fleshed out and kind of expanded on, because I really wanted to explain my services in a way that helps you guys to understand how I can help and how I can best assist you, and really give you some real practical ways to tap into the work that I do. And so there is more to come on this. I'm still working on fleshing things out as we go along. But of course, got the free preliminary consultation up there. I've got my higher guidance, which of course today's topic is the higher self. If you are looking for a connection to your higher self, check out the higher guidance sessions here. That is the focus of this session. And this is also an option as well, the quantum healing hypnosis technique. This is in person only, but if you happen to live in and around Minneapolis, Minnesota, come check me out. I would be honored to do that session with you. That's Dolores Cannon's method. Other than that, I've got a lot of my future visioning fleshed out in here, and a couple different options as far as career and life purpose, relationships and love. I've also got the just standard kind of future visioning session, which all of these methods, or all of these, I guess, packages can be tailored to you and your needs. So definitely, if you're interested, don't be afraid to book that free consultation. We can talk about what you're looking for, what your goals are, and really get into it. And more to come also on this future vision coaching. I am now a future vision coach, and took that course with Ann Jurish, one of my mentors and teachers. And this is a really cool application of the future life progression work that I've done in a tailored way towards businesses and entrepreneurs, and more the small business owner looking to gain more insight into how to move forward, what's the best path forward. Like I said, more to come on that because I have lots to share and it's beyond the scope of today, but wanted to give you guys a toss around of kind of the new services and layout there. So check it out. Also next week, make sure you join Corbin and I for our lunar cycles show. We'll be talking the Leo new moon along with the astrology and the activation. So definitely will be fun to get into that next week with you guys. That's Friday at 5. And soon here, we're going to be synced up with the moon a little bit more. I know we've been kind of far ahead for a while now, but it's all good. All right. I think I will pull this down and return myself to, there we go. Nice. Oh, and hello, Sylvia. So good to see you. Thanks so much for coming, joining the show. Hope you are doing well. All right, let me find my notes again and take a little sip. All right, guys. So first thing that I wanted to talk about is kind of what is the higher self? I think a lot of you watching this video, if you were drawn to this video, probably have some level of knowledge or insight or feelings around the higher self. And by no means is this meant to be like all-inclusive definition. I think with a lot of spiritual topics, a lot of our understandings of things beyond the veil, we do the best that we can with the spoken word and kind of conceptualizing things in a way that makes sense, but always take what resonates, leave the rest. And definitely if you have opinions, if you have thoughts, please share those below because I'm always looking to learn. And I definitely learn a lot every single session that I have with the higher self. Having that conversation, connecting in that way with clients' higher selves during the session, it is transformative for everyone involved, including me. And I feel like my mind, my being, my intuition is all expanded each time that I get to facilitate this type of a session. So it's really cool energy. It's really fun. But anyway, what is the higher self? What are they? What is it? I think the simplest way to put it, because there's a lot of different ways, you know, the higher self is sometimes called the superconscious or the subconscious. That was Dolores Cannon's kind of term for this part of you that you tap into in this way. Some people call it the oversoul. I feel there is a little bit of a distinction there. We'll get into that in a moment. But the higher self is essentially an aspect of you. This is a fractal of you, a expression of you. You know, we talk about our multidimensional selves and how we exist in multiple states, multiple dimensions, multiple levels, beyond even just like the physical, mental, spiritual bodies, right? And with that, there is this idea too of kind of I like the idea of the Russian nesting dolls. If you guys have seen those, where you have sort of maybe you are the tiniest doll in the middle, and then you have these different layers or levels that extend out and get bigger and bigger. And it's one way to conceptualize the higher self as one of those dolls as you make your way out to the biggest version of you. And this version of you, this higher self, this higher you, is essentially connected to the collective, still connected to source consciousness, and is at a higher level vibrationally, frequency wise, dimensionally. I feel like a lot of these words can be interchanged depending on how you conceptualize, and so I like to use them kind of depending on what feels right, what feels best. With your higher self, though, you're tapping into this version of you that is wise. It is knowledgeable about more than just what your conscious mind has access to. It's a part of you that understands the physical workings of your body, and in often, you know, when you conceptualize it like the subconscious, it's the part of you that is controlling that, or is sort of facilitating the physical processes and such that are beyond our conscious mind. I think that resonates to an extent for me. I don't know. Let me know what you think, if that's your understanding of it. I think that some of that is layered into that, but I think that there's more beyond just that definition of the higher self, because I think the higher self is multidimensional and multifaceted in and of itself. But we connect with this part of ourselves through a higher frequency state. So besides talking in theory like this, I think we'll do a little comparison game to kind of give some examples or help to maybe elucidate it a little bit more. I think with a lot of this information, though, this is sort of information that awakens us at a deeper level than just conscious understanding. And we don't always need all of that conscious understanding of the finer details or the ins and outs for it to be impactful, or for it to help us understand more of ourselves, more of who we are, and more of our being. But I think we humans, we like to understand. We like to think about things and logic our way through it, mental our way through it. And so that's where some of these concepts can help. Anyway, I think the higher self versus the oversoul is a good place to start, because I think that these are terms that sometimes get interchanged. And to an extent, I think that you could talk about the higher self as an oversoul aspect of you. But I really see the oversoul as kind of that furthest out version of you. If we're looking at the Russian nesting dolls, it's the biggest doll. It's kind of that oversoul, that container for your entire soul. And I think that's where like the language of oversoul really makes sense for that concept of it. And that this is kind of like your largest source fractal, that beyond this would be like source itself. It would be like the all-encompassing everything. And of course, the separation is but a figment of our imagination. But bear with me, we do our best with language, right, to explain these sorts of things. So sort of lost my train there. Essentially, though, your higher self is, I view it as sort of a part of us along the path to our oversoul. We'll get a little bit more into the oversoul in just a moment, because I have a clip to share around that concept, and I think that'll help too. But we'll just touch on that for now. More to come. The idea of higher self versus guides is also something that I have heard and have had questions around from clients. And I think that this is helpful to understand in like in that the guides are connected to you. They are a part of you. As far as they are in your energy field, they're connected to you by energy cords, by etheric cords. Like, these are beings that are a part of your team, right? They are, and I think oftentimes we try to draw strict boundaries between it, but I've seen cases where your higher self is a guide to you, and where conceptualizing it as like these very separate things, I think loses some of the nuance and some of the point of it all. When we seek to label to such an extent, it can sometimes get a little bit dicey. I don't think it's always the most accurate thing when we try to draw super strict boundaries between things. But guides generally are support from an external sense. These are beings or energies that feel more separate from us, whereas our higher self has more of a familiarity. It has more of your soul's blueprint, if you will, and oftentimes feels more familiar than guides will. If you are familiar with guides, if you have experience there, you might have star family guides, you might have ancestor guides, you might have guides that are angelic or energetic beings, and these typically feel a little bit separate. So just a little bit on that topic. I guess a side note too, it's interesting when I have sessions with clients and we do have guides come through versus the higher self. And there certainly is an energetic difference there. And so I won't pretend like I know all of the finer spiritual mechanics of it all. Let me know if you do. But I think there is an energetic difference. And that's where separation is perceived, right? Is in that energetic difference. Anyway, I think it's interesting. Another kind of verses that I've thought about and worked with in my practice is the higher self versus the future self, which, if you have followed the channel, if you watch some of my other videos, I am really interested in the future and using these techniques of visioning and exploring in that deep part of you to explore the future and to delve into possible future timelines, understanding more of your soul's trajectory in a forward sense, if we're thinking about time linearly. I think that the higher self and the future self are oftentimes pretty similar. And I would say that energetically, I've felt a similarity between the energies of like my future self versus the higher self. I think it comes down to your intentions as far as like what you're looking to gain, what you're hoping to understand by tapping into these parts of yourself. I think the higher self as well is maybe a little less bound by time in a sense, in our sense of it, whereas your future self is kind of linearly ahead of you. So like your higher self, you could tap into a higher self aspect of you that is in the past or in a parallel existence, whereas I think your future self, with that intention that you're setting, you're really like reaching forward in that linear time concept paradigm. Hopefully that's all making sense. So you guys, let me know if I'm just like rambling to myself and I make no sense, or if this is making sense. If you have questions, put them in the chat. I definitely am happy to elaborate on anything that maybe doesn't make sense, or doing the best that I can with the English language. But the higher self will tell you that the spoken language is not the most accurate form of communication. If you didn't know, you probably knew. But oh, I love this, Corbin. Try not to worry about the finer spiritual mechanics brings me too much into the left brain. Absolutely. And that's where I think exploring these on like a conscious mental level can be fun. But especially when you're tapping in yourself, don't question it too much. Don't be too analytical about it, because it really is our thoughts and our intentions are powerful. Anyway, hello, Brian. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're watching from Kenya. Hope you guys are doing well over there. And so glad to have you joining the show. I hope you enjoy the content today. All right. So higher self versus future self. I really think it's something that matters more to us humans here on Earth than it matters in like a quantum sense or beyond that. I do think that a lot of these distinctions come down to semantics, and I really think that that's the case in a lot of spirituality, especially when we look at like spirituality versus religion. I don't know about y'all, but I started in religion, left, like veered far away from spirituality, and then found my way back in a more authentic and true to me self. And I really think that the ways that we fight about semantics or wording or the name of something or someone, the wording of translation, I mean, like it's interesting how we can fight so much amongst ourselves about these things, that when you kind of like take a step back and you look at the big picture, you're like, okay, yeah, you say, you know, this name for God, source, you know, collective energy, and I say this name, but isn't it the same concept at its core? And so I think that's where we're starting to break down some of those boundaries, or starting to understand that aspect. But anyway, I'm getting off into the weeds there. All in all, though, when we're tapping into aspects of ourselves, or you know, if you're opening to channeling, or you are looking for messages in the cards, the biggest thing that I think needs to be said over and over, and I'll say it a few times throughout the show, is discernment. And I just was having coffee this morning with, good question, Sylvia, I'll get to that in a moment. I was just having coffee with a friend this morning, and I should say tea. I was having tea this morning, and we were talking about discernment. And I said, discernment is like the word of the year, in my opinion. I feel like in a lot of ways we've come to this head of like the collective lesson of discernment is just really prevalent. And she laughed because she was like, oh my gosh, discernment's one of my words of the year. And so we have a lot of synchronicities like that where we have picked up on the same energies or thoughts. It's really fun. But using your discernment and using your gut, your heart, wherever you feel those messages, wherever you, it could be your head too, but using your discernment when you're tapping into anything beyond the veil is really important, because and we'll get into this in a bit, but you can tap into various levels of energies, various beings, entities, however you want to conceptualize it. And it's really important to have discernment, because otherwise you might be mistaking a less than positive message for the higher self. So anyway, I have a couple of different analogies that I want to get into, but first I'll answer this question. So Sylvia was saying, can your higher self communicate through dreams? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we have communication with many aspects of ourselves through our dreams, and that includes our higher self, that includes parallel lifetimes. I've not only experienced that personally, but I've also had clients get that insight from their higher selves during sessions where we've asked about dreams, or we've asked about that connection with the higher self. Because a lot of clients, as you can imagine, come to the session and they're like, hey, well, how do I communicate with my higher self afterwards? Or how can I maintain this connection? And dreams is certainly one of those places, because our conscious mind is so much more quiet, and it allows our subconscious or our higher self to get those messages through in a way that we accept. Because so often, especially when we're moving about our day, we're conscious, we are usually pretty distracted by the physical world around us, or our mental world inside of our head. And so dreams or meditation is a time where our higher self has an easier time connecting with us, for sure. They've told clients before in sessions, like, set your intention before you fall asleep or as you're falling asleep, saying, setting your intention of like, I'd like to connect with my higher self. I'd like to connect with that higher aspect of me. If you have specific questions, you have something that you specifically want to delve into, like setting that intention before you go to bed, and then seeing what comes up and seeing what comes through. So yeah, definitely something that if you try working in your dreams, or if you have experiences, definitely share those with us, because a really good point, Sylvia. So I appreciate you asking that question. Corbin asking about more intense dreams over the last few with the full moon. I know I've had some interesting dreams this week, and they've tied into my full moon lessons, which is always fun when you get those multiple layers of messaging, right? Looks like Brian saying intense and vivid dreams too. Yes, dream journaling. Dream journaling is a wonderful way to capture those memories, capture those insights, capture that information as it comes through. And if you have like a voice memoing or a voice recorder or something, I know a lot of people who have those little like clicker recorder things for capturing those sorts of memories and ideas and stuff. Definitely a good practice to get into. I know Corbin loves his dream journaling. All right. Before we move into a session clip that I wanted to share with you guys, I wanted to talk about a couple different ways that I conceptualize it. I talked about the Russian nesting dolls, which I think it's not unique to me. I think other people have talked about this too. my favorite, most recent analogy that I got, actually through a card pull, so you might remember this from my channel, but was the idea of the oversoul as an octopus. And so for those of you who are not familiar with octopus anatomy, octopi have their central like brain in their body, the main part of their body, and then they have separate like brains in each of their tentacles, and these are smaller than the large brain in the center, but they are advanced enough to do certain tasks or do like exploratory movement on their own, and essentially work independently of the other tentacles as well as the central brain, which is so fascinating. And when I like remembered that fact, I was like, that is just like not exactly, but like it's a pretty close analogy to my understanding of that, where you have the main brain being the oversoul, and so it essentially has awareness and connection, and it has control over all of the tentacles. It is connected to all of them. It is a part of all of them. The tentacle brains are capable of communicating back to the main brain or the oversoul, but then they can also do their own thing. And ultimately, this idea of when all the tentacles, or when all of the soul fragments, soul fractals, collaborate and work together with the main brain or with the oversoul, that things run smoothly. They are able to accomplish a lot. I mean, think of how like busy and like, octopus, like they're always moving, they're always doing stuff. Their tentacles are like always going places. So anyway, I thought it was like a fun analogy. I thought it was interesting, and I liked the way that it helps to kind of illustrate that connection between where like all of these brains are a part of the same being, the same soul, but they are separate and individual in their consciousness to a level. But that also is what allows us to connect back to our higher self, to connect to these other parts of us, because they are parts of us, right? So even if they're existing in other dimensional levels or layers, in other realms, in other places, that is how we are able to tap in through the quantum, because we are connected, we are entangled with these other parts of ourselves. Anyway. Absolutely. My pleasure, Sylvia. I love questions. It is a lot of fun to interact with y'all. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love just like ranting and talking at the screen, but the interaction is fun. And that's what I love most about live chats is and live shows, is the opportunity to interact with people, talk about these things in a collaborative way. And yeah, I love it. Hello, Ken. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for stopping in. I hope you are doing well. All right. Yes. Octopus love. Octopus love. The other way, and I've kind of mentioned it a few times here, but the other metaphor that I like, or the other concept that I like for explaining the higher self, the oversoul, like our connections, is the fractal concept. Sure, we'll call it a concept, fractal concept. And I have a little clip that I want to play for you guys from a hypnosis session with a friend of the channel, Solrita, and Soul's higher self was sharing with us about the diamond oversoul concept, and how they conceptualize the oversoul, the higher self, the soul fractal. So I'll play that in a moment. But I like to think about it in this way because it really helps me to understand kind of the levels and layers, and how it works together, and yet is unique and expresses uniquely, if that makes sense. So let me play the clip, and we will discuss after that. So give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear. Should be all good with the sound.
What it's showing me is like a big diamond fractal that is the oversoul, and each of the little facets of that diamond are individual diamonds. And so they're showing me, they keep handing me a basket of diamonds, and we're piecing together, tapping into various different lifetimes and fractals but it's all part of that one unique oversoul. So many people are putting the pieces of the puzzle back together right now, and we're looking at them individually, but it would be interesting to look into the oversoul or anchor as many of these diamond light aspects of self that we can whilst we're down here in the earth plane.
So I just thought that way of framing it was really interesting, and also the ways that the higher self talks about anchoring in those aspects of us, those soul aspects of us. And that's definitely something that resonates a lot with me based on my work and how I see this sort of integration work happening in sessions where we tap into past versions of self or future versions of self, where you are essentially synthesizing, wrapping up loose ends, pulling your energy back to you. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can think about this, right? A lot of these things, there's lots of ways you can think about it. But when we tap into past lives and we say, and we heal trauma from those lives, or we heal through understanding what happened to us then versus what's happening now, when we integrate those lessons, that essentially calls that soul fragment, that energy back to us, allows us to sort of synthesize that part of us in similar ways that like inner child work happens, where you bring that inner child energy back with you. You rescue that 8-year-old version of you. You save them, and help them from this vantage point from the future. It's that sort of quantum work, right? But the fractal piece really resonates, and that the diamond energy as well, and the ways that diamonds are so multifaceted, right? And that we're piecing them back together. It's really great. Corbin's saying, I love the diamond metaphor. The octopus is good too, but I resonate with diamond a lot. Absolutely. And that's why I think the more different ways that we can, and the more fun we can have with like conceptualizing these things, all it takes is that one metaphor or that one explanation to help someone else, when maybe other ways of talking about it don't click, or don't elucidate the thing. So I definitely think that's where different metaphors can be really helpful. All right. So with that, talking about the diamond oversoul, I really think that our higher self is sort of a fractal along the way. It's sort of that higher dimensional, higher frequency, higher vibe version of us that's just a little bit higher, or maybe a lot higher. It depends on what you're looking for, what you tap into. I did pull up a little short video. I won't play the sound with it because it doesn't really matter. But I wanted to play this clip for you guys. I'm sure most of you are familiar with fractals and with the Mandelbrats, but I think these are so fascinating, and the mathematics of it all, and the ways that it mirrors the different layers of reality. I think it's really fascinating. So I'll play this for you guys so you can get that sense of that zoom, right? Where you start out with one image and you zoom in and you zoom in and you zoom in. And this is the idea of, starting with the higher self. And then as you go in, there's these different versions of us, and you have unique expression. You have like the different parts of it, but they all form together to, to be image within an image, within an image, within an image, within an image. And you ultimately like arrive back at the same thing, right? And so it's that cyclical nature, that multidimensional levels, that I think really helps to give us at least some level of a concept to understand our soul, that oversoul part of us, as well as where our higher selves fall into this picture. Because in the same session with Soul Rita, the higher self did say that there was a distinction between the oversoul and the higher self, that they explained it as the oversoul being sort of beyond the matrix, beyond the dome of reality, if you will, and sort of that player playing the game, or the dreamer dreaming the dream. And so I thought it was really interesting and fascinating the ways that the higher self helps us to understand it and understand our existence there. So anyway, I think you guys get the point there. What do you guys think? Do these metaphors resonate with you? How does this align with your own understanding of the higher self? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments below. Because again, I think the more that we dialogue about these sorts of things and demystify, I just think it's really important. And, I was talking with the same friend earlier today about like spiritual gatekeeping, and the ways that spiritual knowledge throughout history, but then also, by individuals these days too, can be kept behind a paywall, or can be sequestered to only a select few. And I think that this concept of higher self connection is something that really needs to be shared far and wide. And the more people that can realize this facet of themselves, this part of themselves that is here to assist, I think it just helps us all. So anyway, off my soapbox there. So I did see your question, Sylvia, and I will get to that in a moment about entities or negative energies. So ultimately, I think that when we're thinking about connection with the higher self, it's really important to start first and foremost with that your higher self is a part of you, right? We've talked about this. It's a facet of you. And that is part of how we are able to tap into it. And that's why we can tap into it. It's like the higher self has said often that they're right here. They aren't like far off in some distant land. They are like right here, ready to assist. And so we oftentimes as humans overcomplicate things or think that it's got to be harder than it is. And connecting with your higher self is easier than you think. But it does depend on frequency and dimensional positioning. I like to think about, thank you, Ken. Glad it resonated. I really like to think about the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the ways that they were able to connect to different dimensions and different multiverses, versions of themselves, but they could only go so far. There was a limit to how far they could go, because it depended on where they were in the multiverse. And so with that, I think that your frequency and where you're at says a lot about how and what you'll tap into. And this isn't about like hierarchy or like worthiness or gatekeeping. It's more about your own personal awareness of your frequency, your energy, and your resonance, and as well as your readiness too, because there are certainly questions that clients have come to sessions with and their higher self says they're not ready for that answer, or I can answer that in part, but there's layers of this that they'll need to uncover moving forward. And no matter how hard I fight with them to try to get that information released, there is a readiness piece to connecting with your higher self and that information that is, again, not about like worthiness. It's about appropriateness. It's about what's going to be best for you and most helpful for you. And yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. I think too, intention is a really powerful piece of this sort of work, whether you're doing a session with me or you're trying to connect with your higher self on your own. Your intention and what you set out to do is powerful. And we'll talk about tips in just a moment as far as connecting. But I think that before we get into that, some of the ways to recognize your higher self versus other entities, beings, energies, which brings me to Sylvia's question. So Sylvia asked or said, most scary for me is that it's not so positive entities giving you answers instead of guides or higher self. how do I keep that from happening? And this is definitely something that you are not alone by any means, Sylvia. I think that especially with like the modern horror industry and horror media and the shows and stuff that are out there, as well as a lot of the discourse as well, there is a lot of fear around things beyond the veil and entities, energies, demonic beings. And there is certainly those types of energies out there because there's all types of energies out there. I mean, when we look at the balance in the universe and the balance of light and dark, there is darkness out there, absolutely. But again, kind of bringing it around to that discernment piece, your discernment will tell you if you're tapped into your higher self or not. Your discernment, your inner knowing will tell you if you have tapped into something that is here for your best and highest good, or something that is of a more nefarious nature or a trickster energy, that type of thing. And with that, there is definitely some prep work and some, again, intention setting that we'll go through in a moment, as far as kind of tips for how do you prepare for this sort of a connection, and how do you set yourself up for success. But ultimately, it's almost as simple as, is it a positive message? Is it uplifting? Is it encouraging? Is it light? Is it positive? And that doesn't mean that your higher self can't communicate some tough truths to you, but they're not going to bully you. They are not going to talk down to you. They are not going to talk down or gossip about someone else. They are not going to say mean things or rude things. And so if you're looking at just the information level, you can tell if it's your higher self or your positive guides by that kind of truth test, right? Of, is it positive or is it negative? And there is a level of like trusting yourself and trusting your intuition and trusting your knowing that is a key part of this. And so that's a good place to start, is practicing and working on trusting yourself and trusting your knowing and know the information that flows to you. But all in all, at the information sense, that is one of the clearest ways to determine who you're speaking with. And that can be in kind of like is this my higher self or is this not? And beyond that, I'll share some of kind of the signs that I've experienced personally, as well as some of the reportings from clients who share their experiences as well. Let me know if that helps too, Sylvia, if you have more question there. I mean, we'll share a little bit more here, but let me know if that resonates with you. Some of the other signs that you can tell you're tapping into the higher self, and what I've noticed is a sensation of heat. So your body heating up, the energy literally building inside of you. That can be like a heat in the body. It can be sweating. It can be tingling. It can be some of those physical sensations. I will say that could also speak to other energies, or other. I think that speaks more to like the energy buildup from your higher self, because there is more energy to them. And so when that facet comes in, when that facet comes through, it can generate that heat. But the other signs are a knowing. And I've talked about dominant senses before on this channel. We've talked about the different information flows, from the more visual to the emotional to more of the cerebral, or like knowledge, the downloads piece. And I know for myself, as well as for many clients, there's just a sense of knowing that it's your higher self. Just that very sure knowing. And the ways that information flows is similar to like automatic writing or channeling, where that information flows to you, flows through you quicker than you can consciously think of. So that's another way, another facet that looks. And then I definitely think that the feeling, like I said, the information is part of that, but how do they make you feel when you're tapped into that energy, or when you're speaking with that energy? How do they make you feel? If they leave you feeling drained, negative, disparaged, sad, angry, any of those more lower vibration emotions, that's not your higher self. And you can trust that that's not your higher self. If they're being cruel or mean towards you or someone else, that's not your higher self. Trust that. And if they are building you up, if they are positive, if they are encouraging, if they are shedding light and truth, that is much more likely to be your higher self. There is some crossover there with some like angelic guides or ascended masters, like the higher guidance beings, I suppose you could put it that way. But they're gonna feel more separate from you than your higher self is. There's again that familiarity with that part of you. All right, sorry, I'm catching up in the chat here. Yes, Abraham Hick. That name I recognize. I can't remember exactly his story, but Brian, I know who you're talking about to an extent. Okay, Sylvia saying, yes, definitely makes sense. Your higher self would want what's best for you. Exactly. Ooh, yes, the pendulum. Yes, it makes sense. I used to work with the pendulum sometimes and got misguided. I think with physical objects, especially, there can be, I think, sometimes a little easier interference. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally making that up, but I feel like there can be more energetic interference, not necessarily like nefarious even, but it could just be energetically interfered with. But I don't know. I was told pendulum works with your own frequency and inner knowing. I now get more messages in dreams and try meditating more in this way. Yes. Sylvia, this brings up a great point, which is there are going to be, and there are lots of different methods for connecting to deeper parts of yourself. There's lots of different ways of conceptualizing it. There's lots of different techniques and approaches and ways that people work. Personally, with a teacher or a guide, I mean, there's a lot of different ways, and I think the reason for that is because it opens up the possibilities to more people, right? But again, it's an opportunity for your discernment to say, well, the pendulum wasn't super clear for me, so I'm going to go with these other methods that were more clear and they resonated more. And I think that that's really important, is recognizing what is for me and what's not. Not everyone's going to vibe with the tarot, and that's totally okay. Some people are going to prefer the I Ching. Other people are going to prefer tea leaves. There's so many different ways that we can do all this stuff, and the more that we can allow for that flexibility and that uniqueness, I think it's good for us. It's good for us. All right. Hello, Mickey Boss. Thanks for joining. Hope you're doing well. All right. So ultimately, again, discernment around entities versus higher self, discernment around the messaging and the feel and the vibe. And that's really like one of the through lines that I like to emphasize, and I really want you to walk away with, is that your answers are within you, but it is up to you to discern what is true for me, what is best for me, and I think that's an important piece here. Anyway, I promise you some practical tips and tricks, and certainly I would say come get a session with me if you feel called to connect with your higher self, especially if you want to have more of that dialogue. It is oftentimes easier to do with the guide, with someone else, but certainly I don't want to be a gatekeeper for your higher self either. And they say over and over again to clients in sessions, like, we want to talk to you more. We wish that you connected with us more, that you asked us more for help, that you sought us out. And so from the higher self itself, they want to connect with you. And so I thought I'd share some just little tips that I have. And again, underlining it all with discernment. Use your discernment, use your intuition, and go with what feels good. Because if it feels bad, if it feels icky, if it feels negative, if it feels dark, that's probably not your higher self. All right, so first and foremost, I like to start with a sort of protection step. And you can work this in however you feel, whatever feels right for you. I really like a white pyramid of light and placing that around myself, all sides of myself, including the bottom, and setting that as my intention of protection, my intention of like kind of boundary setting. And you could also do like a white bubble of light. I also really like the technique or the approach of building up your own energy field, your toroidal field, and building that up to the extent where like no external energies can get in. But do what resonates with you. Setting that protection, and that's both on a literal protection level, but it also is on that subconscious level where it helps you to feel more secure. It helps you to feel more safe. And so doing that step can help you to feel more confident opening up to your higher self and being open to those messages. And remembering that you have autonomy, you have free will, and you have sovereignty over your being. And so if someone's trying to gain access or someone wants in that you don't want, all you have to say is no, because you are that powerful. And I'd like to remind you of that as often as I can, because you are powerful and you have that sovereignty over your being. And it's really important that you remember that and that you utilize that, because you have the right to say no to energies entering your field. Anyway, so starting with that or working that in, it also is about putting yourself in a positive place. So, Sylvia, you had mentioned earlier that you're worried sometimes about tapping into lower energies or entities. When you set yourself up by putting yourself in a positive place, whether that be, meditating and finding center, tuning into your heart, or maybe it's dancing and, moving your body and feeling that joy and that freedom and that creativity. It could be, making yourself laugh, or like reading something funny, or laughter is like a very high vibe energy, but putting yourself into a positive place is a wonderful way to start and a really good way to set your intentions for that connection. So if you want to connect with your higher self, getting yourself in that positive place, that positive space, is super helpful. And then again, like, not to beat it beat a dead horse or whatever, but intention is really important. And remembering that your thoughts shape reality is really empowering. And it also is an important part of doing this work, because when you set your intentions and you hold to that, you build those up. If your intention is to connect with your higher self, recognize that you have the power to do that. You have the power to connect in that way. And like Corbin is saying, I like to envision putting on golden chainmail. That's a good protection as well. Visualization as a tool is a key part of my work, but I also think that it is a key part of tapping into this part of you. So visualizing, visualizing yourself in a safe place, connecting with your higher self, whatever that looks like. I wanted to share today, and maybe I have time to pop one of those up. But the idea of visualizing to connect with your higher self, in the same session with Soul, we had this concept of a pod come through, and a pod meditation, which I did share on my channel just this week. I clipped it and shared it out. So if you wanted to check that out, I definitely encourage you to, because it was a really fun meditation to write, and the feedback from it was that it was really powerful in helping people to connect in with that energy. So definitely can go there and do that. You know what? Here, I'll play that clip real fast, and then oh wait, not that one. This one. That pod. I just want to make sure that I understand, and so that then Soul understands when she listens back to this. But it's like visualizing the pod as the container for higher self energy, or for that source energy.
It's like a private space where plasma is more densely concentrated. So if we give an object attention and then we direct plasma with it, it forms kind of like consciousness, similar to like cache technology or healing units or, crystals. Once we form a relationship with it, they're able to help assist us. So she can create a pod in the higher layers and levels. And when she, in meditation or hypnosis, steps into this pod, it starts to require holding this plasma frequency and resonance, and becomes almost like how people talk about creating a avatar or creating a being that exists. This is like her creating a non-physical object or a healing location to go to, in which she can go into that's safe and protected. And it helps to densify, is the word I keep hearing, helps to densify her goals, her outcomes, her dreams, her aspiration, her good feeling, and her intuition, and her love, and everything that she's here to do and share with humanity. It helps to densify. She comes out feeling more awakened and more alive and alert and more capable. It goes on for a little bit longer, but I'll stop it there. I just love the ways that they talk about how tapping into the higher self energy, especially through that pod visualization, that it can help to anchor in and densify the higher self aspects of her, the higher timeline, the higher energies. And it's the same for all of us when we tap into our higher selves. And I think that it really does help us to continue on this path of ascension that many of us are on. And ascension might not be the word that resonates with everyone. It might be that personal growth or that human evolution, and more in the positive sense than the negative. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Let me see. What do I want to jump to? First, Ken, I'm so looking forward to the session with you as well. I definitely think that the method of using hypnosis, using trance, to delve into the deep parts of you, it's truly profound, the ways that it can help access information, clarity, insights. And it's really cool. I mean, these sessions are transformative. And like I was saying at the beginning, that energy of tapping into the higher self is such a profound, amazing experience. And it's such a personal experience too, because these are individuals just like we are, because they are that higher aspect of us. And so there is an individuality to the higher selves, even when there is a through line or a collective note to them, if that makes sense. I love sharing the visuals, guys. It really is wonderful. All right. So what I'll end with and just share for a few more minutes here is, why is tapping into the higher self so important? If it's not obvious already, I think we are being called to step into a higher energies, to higher frequencies. We talk about the new earth, or about the next phase of humanity and the next evolutionary step. And I think that our higher selves, they're a part of us that is reaching through the quantum to assist us, to help us in this journey, and to help facilitate this shift into a higher dimensionality, to higher frequency. And our higher selves want to help us grow and help us bloom into
these next versions of ourselves, into the best versions of ourselves. And again, it's not about best in that like we're better than anyone else, or that the higher selves are better than us. It's best as in what's best for us. What did we choose for this incarnation? What is our soul yearning for? And this is based on our individual mission. It's based on our purpose. It's based on our individual soul frequency. And so it's not about better or worse, or even positive or negative. It's like it's about that soul expression. And so I think that as we're rising in frequency, these higher aspects of ourselves, they're the way showers. They're helping us to embody that energy, to help drive us forward, move us forward, encourage us forward in that growth and that evolution that we're doing, that we're working through. And ultimately, I think that like getting it, or like understanding the concept of higher self, is kind of an overrated thing. It's interesting. I'm fascinated by it. I love like uh, gaining deeper understanding of these sorts of things. But what the higher self says is it's not so much about getting it as it is about opening up to the possibilities with creativity and playfulness. And it's having an awareness of your higher self and awareness of your higher aspect is definitely the first start. It is important. And I think that when we have that awareness, it opens the door to more communication in different ways. And like I kind of touched at, when you have your understanding of how information flows to you, like, are you a visual person? Are you a downloads knowing person? Are you an emotions person? How do you process information? Do you feel it? That can help you to start to tune into these higher self messages and insights, and help you to really utilize this connection and this assistance, because we do have a lot of assistance out there. So yeah, I hope ultimately that the show was informative for you, that it helped you understand a little bit more about this aspect of yourself, to understand your being and who you are at a different level or in a different way, maybe some fresh verbiage or a new way of thinking about it. And remembering that your higher self is a part of you that wants to support and wants to assist. And they have that expanded awareness to help you navigate this crazy world we're living in, because it's pretty wild out there. It's pretty turbulent, and the higher self wants to assist us through this. So use visualization, trust your senses, trust your intuition, trust your discernment, and use your discernment. If I can leave you with one message, use your discernment, especially when you're tapping in on your own. When you're in a session with me, or if you're in a session with another practitioner, you've got a little support in that discernment, but you certainly are more than capable of discerning yourself, and you have that power, that ability. So listen to it, trust it, and yeah, hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments below. Did this resonate? What are your own thoughts about the higher self? How do you connect with your higher self? Definitely fun to share that info in the comments, and definitely go and check out the meditation, the higher self connection pod meditation that I posted just yesterday, 2 days ago. I can't remember. It was a couple days ago. It's just on my channel. Check that out if you want more of a guided journey to connect with your higher self energy. And of course, here, we'll just pull up the bookings page. Head on over to my website, and then from there to my bookings page, to book yourself a higher guidance session if you would like to have that higher self experience with me. We can always start with that free consultation if you have some questions, or if you want to talk more about your goals. But definitely, if this sort of connection resonates with you, if you're looking for to deepen that connection to your higher self, if you're looking for that experience of dialoguing with them and gaining that insight and that clarity on your life, your soul purpose, your there's lots of possibilities of what can be uncovered and found through tapping into your higher self. You can ask lots of questions. I like to think of it as sort of like a speed dating with your higher self sort of a thing, where we're asking as many questions as we can to get you all of the insight and knowledge that you can. So these sessions are really, really powerful, really jam-packed with information for you, and it's such an individual experience. So whatever you're looking for insight into, your higher self has that information to help, and it's a really powerful way of tapping back into your inner knowing, your power as a soul, as a co-creator of this reality we're living in, and it really is a profound experience. Don't take my word for it. You can certainly check out what other folks have said about sessions, because it's really profound work, and I love sharing it with y'all. And it's great too, because these sessions are not like you finish the session and like the door slams shut on your higher self, right? I mean, we're talking here about connecting with your higher self freely and on your own. I think these sessions are sort of like opening the door and familiarizing yourself with what that experience is like, what tapping into your higher self is like. And what I've heard from clients is that afterwards they have an easier time connecting. They have more downloads, more information, and more confidence in trusting that information too. So definitely here to assist and help in whatever way I can. And if it's just sharing information this way and sharing energy, I love that too. And I'm so glad you guys are here. Hope you enjoyed this content. All right. Yes. Happy full moon to everyone. Thank you so much, Corbin. I'm happy to share these things with you all and to facilitate sessions. Wishing you all a wonderful rest of your morning, noon, or night, wherever you are. Hope you have enjoyed the full moon energies. I know it's been transformative for me, and probably has for you, because we're kind of culminating after a kind of a level, a stage. Anyway, I'm over the hour. I'm rambling. Love you guys, and we'll talk soon. See you on the next show.